I used to believe exhaustion was the price of being the good son. My name is Cora Clark. I'm 28 years old. Last weekend, my parents turned me into unpaid staff for my sister Madison's birthday celebration. 50 guests, 3 days of preparation, no help, no sleep. By Saturday afternoon, my hands were shaking from fatigue. When I finally asked my mother for support, she didn't just refuse, she laughed. In front of a living room full of lawyers and polished smiles, she said, "You're the only one without a real job. You have the time." What she didn't know was that I had just secured a contract worth more than Madison earns in a year, and what no one in that house realized was that my new CEO was standing there, listening to every word. It began 2 weeks earlier with a text from my mother. No greeting, no question, just instructions. Madison's birthday was coming. She was busy with a big case, so I would handle everything: menu, shopping, prep for 50 guests. I stared at the message from my cramped apartment, surrounded by 3 monitors displaying the brand identity I was building for Meridian Corporation. I had a final executive presentation in 4 days. I'd been working 16-hour stretches, surviving on caffeine and obsession. I tried to push back. She replied instantly, "You work from home. You're flexible. This is what family does." Flexible, her code word for your career doesn't count. It wasn't new. At Christmas, I cooked for 23 people while Madison collected praise. At her law school graduation, I designed the programs, built the centerpieces, and heard my father proudly tell someone she'd organized everything herself. When I mentioned helping, Mom just smiled. "Well, you had time." So I said yes, like I always did. The grocery list arrived at midnight, 3 pages long, elegant but approachable, ingredients from 4 different stores. Meanwhile, Meridian's email sat open. Final review meeting, Thursday 2 p.m., executive board attending. Thursday morning, I presented over Zoom, while 50 people's worth of groceries waited downstairs at my parents' house. That was when I met Christopher Hayes, Meridian's CEO, mid-50s, sharp, observant. He studied my concept and said it captured what they'd been trying to define for 3 years. Then he mentioned he'd be in town that weekend. We should meet in person to finalize the contract. My heart nearly stopped. I explained I had a family obligation Saturday, my sister's party. He smiled and said he'd actually be attending the same event. He was an old college friend of my father. By Saturday morning, I'd been in the kitchen since 6, chopping, marinating, assembling. Madison came down hours later in silk pajamas and casually added 3 keto guests to the menu. I'd already bought everything. She told me to improvise. Then champagne, the expensive kind. Mom reminded me I wasn't dressed and that the bathroom still needed cleaning. She left to help Madison get ready. By 2 o'clock, the house filled with tailored suits and designer dresses. I hadn't showered. I moved between rooms like background noise, refilling glasses, clearing plates, checking timers. In the bathroom, the only room with a lock, I checked my phone. A voicemail from Meridian's assistant confirming Sunday's meeting to finalize my $240,000 contract. I returned to a sink stacked with dishes and the same familiar feeling. Being useful, not valued. A guest approached the kitchen and complimented the food. She assumed Madison had hired catering. When I said I'd made everything, she looked surprised. I told her I was a graphic designer. My mother appeared instantly, smiling brightly. "Cora does little freelance projects from home," she said, dismissing me in one sentence. Little. Then I heard a voice behind me. "These are excellent." I turned. Christopher Hayes. My stomach dropped. The CEO of Meridian Corporation stood in my parents' kitchen while I wore a sauce-stained apron. He remembered I worked in design. Before I could answer properly, my mother called me to bring more wine. From the kitchen doorway, I watched my father greet Hayes warmly. Old friends reconnecting, success recognizing success. And Hayes had just witnessed how I was treated. Summoned like staff, minimized, reduced. In the living room, Dad bragged about Madison's latest merger victory. Applause, admiration. No one mentioned that his son had just created a brand system of Fortune 500 CEO called Exceptional. I looked at the dirty plates, the prime rib resting, the ticking timer. I could spend my life waiting for them to see me, or I could finally see myself. The kitchen door burst open. Madison was panicked. Dinner timing was off. A key partner had theater tickets. She demanded I rush the main course. I refused. It would be raw. She snapped that I always made things difficult. Then she asked me to serve the salad early and told me to smile while doing it. Smile. I stood there holding a bowl, realizing that even in my own parents' home, I was expected not just to serve, but to perform gratitude for the privilege of being invisible. I found my mother in the hallway. I kept my voice low. "I need help," I said. "I can't cook, serve, and clean alone." And that's when everything started to fracture. The party had become a battlefield. My mother smiled, voice smooth and practiced. "Honey, you're doing fine." I shook my head. I'd been at it since 6 a.m., running myself ragged. She waved it off. Madison worked 80 hours this week preparing for her partnership review. We all make sacrifices for family. This is her party. Why was I the only one sacrificing? Because you have the time and flexibility, she said, as if those words absolved her of any guilt. I couldn't hold it back. So what about my career? I'm building one too, Mom. Her smile tightened. Cora, don't do this now. We have guests. I just need someone to help serve so I can finish cooking, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I'm hosting. Your father is catching up with Chris Hayes. Madison is with her colleagues. I'm the only one available. Available. The word felt bitter on my tongue. I'd been working all week, pouring every ounce of focus and creativity into designing a brand system for Meridian Corporation. On what? She asked. Designing logos? Her dismissive pat cut deep. Sweetie, that's not the same as preparing for a partnership decision. Madison's entire future is riding on this. And what about my future? I asked quietly. Dad appeared, awkward. Everything okay here? Everything's fine, Mom said too quickly. Cora's just a little overwhelmed. You're doing great, kiddo. Just power through, Dad muttered, guiding Mom back toward the living room. I returned to the kitchen. The prime ribs timer beeped. I went to pull it out. Edges blackened. I'd been gone too long, distracted by the constant barrage of trivial demands. From the living room, my mother's performative laughter floated back. You should see Cora's apartment, she told someone warmly, just covered in sketches and fabric samples. She's very creative, still freelancing from home, making little designs. Little. I stood there, knife in hand, as polite laughter echoed around the room. Madison glanced my way, then looked away. My invisibility was complete. Then I noticed him, Christopher Hayes, standing near the window, observing. My heart thudded. The CEO of Meridian Corporation, the man who had just offered me a $240,000 contract, watching me in a tomato-stained apron, performing labor my family treated as invisible. My phone glowed with a new email from his assistant. Subject, contract ready for signature. $240,000 for comprehensive brand development. Monday 9 a.m., finalization meeting. I stared at the number, stunned. More than Madison earned in her first year, more than my parents ever imagined I could earn. Sitting in their kitchen, carving meat while they dismissed my work, I realized if I stayed silent, I'd remain invisible forever. Then Madison stormed in, flushed, demanding the meat be served now. I don't care about meat science, she snapped. Bring it out. Madison, I've been working 12 hours straight. It's not ready yet. You work from your couch in pajamas, she said, sharp and dismissive. I'm in court defending actual clients. I paused. Do you know what I'm working on? A big contract. She blinked. How big? $240,000. Her face went white. The Meridian. The Meridian? Yes, I've been negotiating for 3 weeks. The contract is ready. Monday I sign. She sat down, stunned. That realization cut through her performative dominance. Even now she expected me to serve her, even after I'd just secured a life-changing contract. I looked at her, at the perfectly cooked prime rib, at the 50 people who would never see me. Part of me still wanted to help, the part that had always made myself smaller so others could shine. But that part was exhausted. I'll bring it out, I said finally. But this is the last time. I arranged the meat and vegetables with precision. Despite the chaos, it looked flawless. Applause followed as I carried the platter out. Amazing work, Cora, Dad said, smiling. Yet nobody thanked me personally. Then, Christopher Hayes appeared in the hallway, away from the group. His eyes were sharp, evaluating. I didn't realize Ms. Clark I've been working with was Bob's daughter. Small world. Your family doesn't really understand what you do, does it? No, I whispered. He nodded knowingly. Talented people get punished for being capable. You're good at cooking, they ask you to cook. You're flexible, they assume infinite time. You don't complain, they think you don't mind. But capabilities shouldn't be confused with obligations. Something loosened in my chest. Finally, someone understood. The contract isn't charity. You're the best designer we interviewed by far. Your work is extraordinary. Remember that. Whatever happens tonight, your value doesn't depend on whether they recognize it. I stood in the hallway, dirty dishes piled behind me, dessert unplated, but something had shifted. I no longer needed their recognition. Their expectations no longer controlled me. Mom called again, impatient. Cora, coffee. I looked at my phone. 6:47 p.m. I took a deep breath. I had a choice, continue to be invisible, or step into the power I'd earned, and for the first time in my life, I chose myself. The moment had come. I turned to Madison. You know what you meant to when you said I work from my couch in pajamas. Her face went pale. A few of her colleagues had started to notice, reassessing everything. You did? 30 minutes ago in the kitchen? Madison stammered. Mom's laugh was brittle, high-pitched. This is ridiculous. We appreciate everything you've done today, but you're clearly overtired. And I'm done, I said. Done with what? Mom's voice climbed. All of it. I pulled the apron over my head, the cooking, the serving, the pretending this is normal. Cora, Dad stepped forward. You're upset. Let's talk privately. I've tried talking privately, I said. You told me to power through because that's what adults do. Mom's composure cracked. We don't throw tantrums when things get hard. This isn't a tantrum. This is me stating a boundary. A boundary? Madison's voice sharpened. You're abandoning your own family in the middle of a party. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm declining to continue working for free while being disrespected. The room froze. 50 people, witnesses to a family implosion. Aunt Susan, quiet until now, spoke up. Linda, maybe we should stay out of this, Susan. Mom's face flushed red. Kay, you're embarrassing yourself. Am I, or am I embarrassing you? I countered. This is my birthday, Madison said, voice breaking. You're ruining it. I'm not ruining anything. I made all the food. It's in the kitchen. Anyone can serve it, but you're supposed to. Supposed to what? I asked. Be your caterer? Your maid? That's not what we... Mom started. Then what am I? I looked at each of them. If I'm family, why am I the only one working? If my career matters, why do you laugh about it? If you respect me, why am I in the kitchen while everyone else is out here? No one answered. That was the truth I needed them to see. I folded the apron, set it on the coffee table. Dessert's in the fridge. Coffee's in the pot. You can handle it from here. I walked toward the door. Cora, Mom's voice was desperate. If you walk out, don't expect to come back. I paused, turned slowly. Okay. Silence. Then Mom repeated, incredulous. You said don't come back? Yes, I'm very serious. I looked at the room of people. Calm. Professional. I apologize for the disruption. The food is ready. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. I stepped outside. The cool evening air hit my face. Behind me I heard, Mom, she'll be back. She always comes back. I pulled out my phone, confirmed the Monday 9 a.m. meeting with Sarah Smith, and drove away for the first time in my life. I didn't look back. That night, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Madison begging me to return, Mom calling it childish, Dad trying to reason. I ignored them all. Aunt Susan texted, Good for you, honey. Don't you dare go back tonight. Sunday morning, she called to tell me what had happened after I left. The party had unraveled, dessert spilled, coffee ruined, guests leaving early. Hayes stayed behind, speaking seriously to my parents. He told them everything they'd failed to see, my talent, my $240,000 contract, the opportunity to join Meridian Corporation as brand director at a $180,000 base. Mom was speechless. Madison was white with shock. Hayes' calm professionalism had exposed years of dismissal, assumptions, and neglect. It was a reckoning my family never anticipated. And in that reckoning, I finally understood something. My work, my value, and my boundaries were mine alone. No one could take that from me. The tension from Saturday night carried into the week. Sarah Smith had delivered the contract personally, emphasizing the significance of my role at Meridian Corporation. Mom swayed, nearly fainting, and Dad steadied her. The envelope contained the full contract with a note from Hayes. Mr. and Mrs. Clark, your daughter is one of the most gifted professionals I've had the privilege to work with. I hope you're as proud of her as I am to have her on my team. Regards, Christopher Hayes. Mom dropped a glass, tears streaming. Madison read the contract, devastated, not because of anything personal, but because the reality was undeniable. The salary, the position, the scope. It was a major corporate role, not a small freelance project. Dad noted quietly that I was making more than Madison. Mom whispered repeatedly, we didn't know, they didn't ask. Hayes had even added a P.S. In my experience, the most talented people are often the most underestimated by those closest to them, perhaps because excellence in unconventional forms makes us question our own assumptions. By Monday morning, my phone was flooded with 53 missed calls. Apologies, desperate pleas, defensive messages from Mom, Dad, and Madison. I responded with clarity and firmness, sending an email titled Boundaries. I explained that I wasn't angry, but hurt. I needed respect for my career and my space to focus on my new role. I would step back from family gatherings for 3 months, reconnecting only on neutral ground. Mom's response was instant. Cora, please don't shut us out. We're your family. I replied, family is supposed to build you up, not tear you down. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Then I put my phone on silent, donned my blazer, and drove to Meridian Corporation to sign my contract. Meanwhile, Madison faced her own reckoning. Mrs. Patterson, her partner at the firm, called her in first thing Monday morning. Sit down, Madison. We need to discuss Saturday night. Madison tried to explain, but Patterson cut her off. I don't need explanations. I need to understand your judgment. You treated a 6-figure professional like household staff in front of colleagues and clients. You didn't know about her contract because you didn't ask. You assumed her work was beneath you. Madison's partnership review was postponed 6 months. Patterson stressed that leadership required valuing all forms of expertise, understanding diverse paths to success, and working collaboratively. not just recognizing what looks like your own path. Madison left the office stunned and called me immediately. I didn't answer. The social fallout extended beyond work. Mom's 12-year book club quietly advised her to take a break for a month or two, as members were uncomfortable with her behavior and the Facebook post that had gone viral. Dad faced his own reckoning with golf partners who canceled their Sunday game to discuss Saturday's events. The truth was unavoidable. Boundaries had been drawn, respect demanded, and a long-overlooked talent finally acknowledged. I had chosen self-respect over family expectations, and the consequences rippled outward in ways no one anticipated. After the initial shockwaves of the party and the contract, life began to settle into a new normal, but not without reflection and reckoning. Dad spent an entire golf round talking to a friend about being proud of a daughter whose success looked different from his own. At the grocery store, they ran into the Pattersons. Mom whispered, "Everyone knows we pushed our own daughter away." Dad admitted, "We did, Robert. We absolutely did." That night, he called me. I didn't answer, saving his voicemail but letting it sit unanswered. Monday at Meridian Corporation felt like stepping into another life. Hayes personally welcomed me, acknowledging my capabilities and walking me to an office with my name on the door. I had a 12-person team at 28 years old. My first presentation went flawlessly, earning approval and praise from the board. For the first time, I felt fully recognized, not by family, but by myself and my peers. 6 weeks later, a handwritten letter arrived from Mom. She admitted the ways she had misunderstood my work, apologized for making me feel invisible, and shared that she, Dad, and even Madison were in therapy to unpack their biases. They didn't demand forgiveness. They just wanted me to know they were trying. After reading it, I reached out to schedule a coffee, neutral ground, limited time, my rules. At the coffee shop, we set clear boundaries. 1. I wouldn't attend family events without prior consent and clarity on my role. 2. My career was no longer a subject for jokes or comparison. 3. If boundaries were crossed, I would leave immediately, no drama. 4. Rebuilding our relationship would take time. The old dynamic was gone. Dad reached across the table and held my hand, acknowledging that the old dynamic wasn't fair to me. Over an hour, we discussed patterns, assumptions, and years of misunderstanding. 3 months later, Madison became a partner at her firm. She invited me without expectation, introducing me proudly as Cora, the brand director at Meridian Corporation, probably the most talented designer in the region. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Walking away from my family that night had been the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it taught me that boundaries aren't cruelty, they're honesty. Setting them allowed me to value myself, gain recognition for my work, and begin rebuilding relationships on my own terms. This story is a reminder. Honoring yourself and your work isn't selfish, it's survival. Comment, I see my worth if you're committing to respecting yourself just as I learned to respect myself.